Now, very quickly, there became questions about certain gray areas within the Constitution. So that's where the brand new Supreme Court got to make some very important decisions and kind of set the rules. So in this case, McCulloch v. Maryland, the national bank, which remember our debate between Hamilton and Jefferson, Hamilton ultimately won. There was a national bank that was established. They didn't want a branch in Maryland effectively. So they said, yeah, Congress or the Constitution said that you can create a national bank, but it doesn't say that you get to decide where to put it. It didn't explicitly say there has to be one in each state. So we don't want it. That is where the Supreme Court, under this guy named John Marshall, who was the Chief Justice at the time, ruled that Congress has the power to do what is, quote, necessary and proper to create laws within enumerated powers. So remember that the enumerated powers are those things explicitly in the Constitution. But you could say, for example, Congress has the power to raise armies, but it doesn't specifically say Congress has the power to buy aircraft carriers and tanks and fighter jets. So what he's saying is when it says Congress has the ability to raise armies, it's implying that it can do the specific things necessary and proper to carry that out. So that implies that they also can buy fighter jets and missiles and bombs and all those things, even though it didn't explicitly say in the Constitution that they could do that. So it created this whole gray area, a new category of powers called implied powers. The problem is you could argue all day over what an implied power, what is included in those implied powers, right? Whether or not something is, quote, necessary and proper to carry out congressional law, especially as time has gone on, technology has advanced, and Congress is doing things that the writers of the Constitution never could have dreamed of, regulating the speed limit of cars that go 100 miles an hour, for example. So when we talk about federalism, again, it is the multiple layers of government within the federal system. So the federal government is on top. We live in the United States. That's the one in Washington, D.C. So, for example, here in Washington State, we are subject to federal laws, but also to state laws because we live in Washington State. Also, we're subject to Seattle laws because we live within Seattle. So there's overlapping jurisdictions, overlapping governments that have kind of power over us that we have to follow. This is the general idea of federalism. But who gets to make which law specifically is the debate that happens within federalism. An easy way to think about it is taxes. So for example, here in Washington State, we have a sales tax. So that's when you go to the store and something costs $150, you end up having to pay more than $150 because you're also having to pay that sales tax. So if you have a job in Washington State, you're paying taxes on your income to the federal government. You're paying taxes on your things you buy to the state, but you're not having to pay an income tax to the state. If you lived in Oregon, though, you'd have to pay an income tax to the federal government. You'd also have to pay an income tax to the state because they have a state income tax. And if you live in a city that has an income tax in Oregon, you'd also have to pay an income tax to the city. So you'd be paying 3 different income taxes. However, in Oregon, they don't have a sales tax. So if you were to buy something that costs $150, it would actually cost $150. So the taxes you're paying differ on what state you are in. Different states have different taxes.